welcome to... Oh good lord, is this the 12th? I cannot remember. To yet another Discworld novel spoilerific reread thing that I'm doing here. I cannot find my notebook. Cannot find it, I put it somewhere. So I'm just gonna have to wing this one. But this is one of generally my favorites. It's Witches Abroad. And it came out originally in 1991. It has a dedication dedicated to all those people, and why not? Who, after the publication of Weird Sisters, deludes the author with a version of the words of the Hedgehog song. Deary, deary me. And yeah, it's it's a bit of an old copy, so the fact that there's still not loose pages in this is essentially, as you might be able to deduce from both the title being Witches Abroad, and we have an iconic trio of witches at this point in Lancre, and that being Granny, Nanny and Margaret. So I'm pretty certain that we can all guess who the witches who are abroad are. I love this book. Essentially, this book is about these three witches, Granny, Nanny and Margaret Garlic, going off on an adventure and them happening to the world. And this is generally one of the first times in the Discworld canon that we go somewhere that isn't Ankh-Morpork. I love Ankh-Morpork, but Ankh-Morpork is basically the majority of Discworld novels. And the fact that we get to go somewhere else is just... Oof, this book is a lot. It is fully focused on female characters. It is about stories, it's about people, it's about travel, basically. I'm reading a lot of a gentle ripping on British travelers abroad. Since there are scenes that is just like, that sounds very British. And but mainly it's about family as well. It's about the good wits and the bad wits. It's about fairy godmothers, although there's not much fairy in them because this world. It's about witches. It's about what you need and not quite what you want. It's a retelling of Cinderella at the same time as it's a retelling of Princess and the Frog, and it's a retelling of the good wits and bad wits, and then it's a epistolary. I think it's called an epistolary novel, although not quite. I'm confusing myself. Basically, Nanny writes a lot of letters home, and you're like, anyway. Can you tell I'm missing my notebook? Yes. However, as any good Discworld novel starts, this one starts with the death of a witch. Technically speaking, a godmother, but we don't have it. Like, you cannot have a Discworld novel without death. Just... Oh, and the cameos he pulls in this book is just... love it. Also, this is a book where Greybow, Nanny's cat, becomes human. I love this book. So, as I said, it begins with the death of a witch. Her name was... Can I pronounce it? I'm gonna try. Desiderata Hollow. Being a godmother isn't just waving a wand and making things happen. It's a lot like witches in general. It's about so much more. Now, Desiderata, she does choose an heir of sorts. She picks Margaret Garlic because Margaret has a very open mind and is suitable. Like, she's fully capable of doing the job that Desiderata cannot do herself, which is how we get to the story. But she's a very clever old lady. Because she very particularly tells Margaret Garlic to tell Granny and Nanny to absolutely not come help her at any point at all, which is the perfect way to get those two to go with her. I love this Idrada. Like, she's one of those characters that you don't really meet, and I just love her. She's one of my favorites. And the thing is that, like I said, this story is about stories, because we're on the Discworld. Even ideas have life. Storms literally dance in ocean, and everything has a life, everything has a soul, such as a future novel that we will be tackling later on called Soul Music, because even the music is alive. Anyway, the thing about stories is that they want to take place, they want to happen. They don't care who they happen to, they want to happen. And there is a wonderful family secret of Granny's. And of course it has everything to do with the main antagonist, because what is a good adventure story without an antagonist who is related, a family member of one of the heroes of the story? Is like, it's a fantastic trope. And in this case, it's done beautifully. As I said before, this is full of spoilers, so if you don't like that, sorry. So, off our ladies go on an adventure on broomsticks across the Discworld. And of course, you're on a broomstick. It's going to be a little windy. It's going to be up your skirts. So, Margaret, being a practical-minded young lady, she basically invents the bloomers. And Granny, being traditional and set in her ideals and ways, does not approve of the Margarets, as they call them. It's such a, it's one of those little things in how Sir Pratchett tells the story. Is just he takes so many things that are familiar with our world, such as the whole story of bloomers, and how he integrates that into the story, the lore of Discworld. The Discworld is such a fantastic mirror to Roundworld. So that's a fun little aside. I do remember that. And then the things that they have happened to the people that they come across in all the towns. They go to Uberwold, where the people, the locals, are just all very sad and crying and basically mourning the ladies preemptively. Margaret in particular, because it's a very gothic-y, very vampire style of story, and as it happens, well, someone who currently looks like a big fat vampire bat does try to steal into, or fly into the inn room. Oh, also there's garlic all over the place. There was a wonderful quote here on page 83. Vampires have risen from the dead, the grave and the crypt, but have never managed it from the cats. Yeah, because the vampire accidentally came across Grebo. And that was the end of that. Now, the other wonderful thing is we do get snippets from a very lovely fairy tale looking city called Genoa, and very interesting things that are happening there. The city is described, as I said, like a fairy tale. And if you know anything about fairy tales, you know that you do not want to live in a fairy tale. You do not want to live an adventure. And there are very disturbing things that are very clearly happening to the people living there. For example, a toy maker who doesn't live up to the stereotype. He likes making toys, but he isn't a fat, jolly toy maker, and he pays the price for that. Because the one who is in factual control of Genoa is someone who is very obsessed with stories, making stories happen, and doesn't care about people. A very disturbing individual. They do also come across what is Little Red Riding Hood. They find the little girl, and then there's the whole thing with the woodsman and the wolf. And a granny. They do manage to save the granny, and this is how you really point out the horror, the terror that is the fairy tale. A wolf that acts like a human being and gets confused because he's stuck between being a wolf and thinking that he's human. It's not. When you think about it, it's terrifying. It's horrifying. And the wolf in this retelling of, or reliving of Little Red Riding Hood has been driven insane by this cruel act of someone making a story come true. And here's the thing, there's also this thing about mirrors all over the place. Granny is going insane. I mean, maybe not insane, but she's really not liking mirrors. She's cracking them and covering them and not really liking puddles. Nothing that reflects. She's like, And the funny thing is that there are people here and there who seem to recognize her, but she's never been anywhere outside of Lance except for the time when she went to Morpok. And she's never met these people, but they know who they are and they do not like her. So apparently, either a granny has been living a double life and been off to a foreign part making stories happen, or there's someone out there who looks quite a lot like her. I mean, we do get Little Red Riding Hood, we get, I think, Sleeping Beauty. There's a lot of classic fairy tales who get there, and the little piggies. I like the story. But you also get a very good taste, like I said, about how cruel and terrifying fairy tales really are. Although I think my most favorite part is the bull running. I cannot find place. Dang it. But yeah, there's a country that is essentially Spain, where they have bull running, and well, things happen with the ladies when they get accidentally drunk, and they kind of spoil the bullfighting. Or bull running is not a fight per se, but let's just say that the next year and ever after, instead of being the macho man show with running after bulls and trying to catch the biggest rosette, they have a flower festival, and they never ever mention the bull running ever again. You need to read it, it's fantastic. So, like with most other Discworld novels, we do follow the antagonist along as well. This one is called Lilith. Cannot remember what her full name was. I can't remember. I don't have my notebook. Anyway, she's that wonderful, terrifying kind of person that you're just like, you look nice, you act nice, you very clearly think that you're nice, but you are the single most evil, terrifying person that I have ever met, and I do not want your attention on me. Period. Because very clearly, Lilith Dearest, Lady Lilith is very fixated on stories. Right now, she's in control of the city of Genoa, and there's a mention of a duck, which is French for prince ruler. It's kind of like duke, I would say, but I don't know languages. And of course with the British, because Sir Terry Pratchett was himself British. They really love making fun of the French. And he makes a double. So not only is he making a pun on the title of duck, which is pronounced, I think, like the English duck, which is, quack quack the bird. But he also manages to get in a fantastic dig, a pun, on the stereotype of the Friends be liking frogs, frog legs. Meaning that if you ever read anything about the British and the Friends, the British really historically have liked to call the Friends frogs, froggy. And then you have the duck, and it's like, oh. I actually had to read up on this to actually get the joke, but I get the joke now. I get it. It's fantastic. And you get this suspicion about the prince, about the duck. And you're like, well, there's something, And then the reveal, and it's like, oh, fits. But there's also the reveal, oh, good lord. Because this is fundamentally a story about stories, but it's also the main plot happens in the city of Genoa, which is where we get our Cinderella story. And our Cinderella is called Umbrella, and she is a gorgeous young lady. She is fantastic. At least the things that you do get to meet of her. I have. And of course, because she is the Cinderella, she is a poor girl who's growing up an orphan with a cruel stepmother who, although there isn't a stepmother character, there is Lilith, but she is apparently Ella's fairy godmother, although Desiderata was her godmother, because there are always two godmothers. And the first time I read that, and there's always two of them, I'm like, that sounds kind of Star Wars, but this was out. I was almost gonna say before, but no. But she does have evil stepsisters, although they're not really evil. Mainly because they can't talk, because of course they are not human. And you get their suspicion, and then you get like, okay, when you finally figure out what actual animals they are, and it's like, fitting. Again, it's very fitting. And dear Lord, when it all comes together, because we also have Mrs. Gogol, who is basically a cook in the swamps. And with a very fantastic cook, because she makes really fantastic gumbo, and she has a very regular big black cockerel called Lekpa, who is very, very much not magical at all. He's just a very clever cockerel. She also has a very interesting house out in the swamps. And as it turns out, she also has a zombie servant, and her house walks on 4 duck legs. So yeah, we get a lot in this character. And then when everything just starts falling into pieces, you got, I love it's not a big part of the story itself. It's like less than half of the book, which I'm not complaining. So we're like over halfway point at this point. And when everything starts falling into pieces, like, it's fantastic. Like, in order, So they do need to make sure that the princess, or the girl, does not marry the prince. So we get our witches like ruining the carriage, shredding the wedding dress, because of course there's a wedding dress already. Doing all the things that they can to make sure that the girl does not go to the ball, so that she does not meet the prince and does not lose her shoe and does not all of that. And it all fails. She's still taken to the ball because see, they didn't break the carriage. Margaret, with that one that she has not been able to make work, because of course there's a one, sorry, I forgot to mention that. She can only turn things into pumpkins. And it's finally at this point that she makes the wand useful by turning the carriage into a pumpkin. It's not. So Lilith, changes the carrots back into a carrot. And there's the mice and the rats being changed into coachmen and being absolutely confused. And the rats being changed into horses and being absolutely confused. And the poor men who were tricked to get drunk so that they couldn't do their job. Lilith is a very cruel person, extremely cruel. She changes them into beetles and tramples on them. And that is generally such a cruel act, such cruelty that is like Lilith is one of the best bad antagonists in the entire novel. Like, I'm not kidding. And the best part, she's Granny's older sister. They're sisters, and Granny just absolutely loathes it because, for reasons, like there are family reasons for everything, and it's like, Oh, I love this book because, you know, as it turns out, I mean, Lilith is Lily Weatherwax, Granny Esmeralda Weatherwax's older sister, the duck, the prince, the slimy little guy that, you know, he looks handsome, he has the parts, he has everything, except he's kind of slimy and always wears like glasses, sunglasses type of things. He's a frog. So you know the part where the prince gets turned into a frog? The frog gets turned into a prince. The two stepsisters, they're snakes. And we still have this wonderful thing about mirrors, and I'm sorry I have not talked quite I haven't really mentioned the mirrors, only that Granny didn't like the mirrors. That's because Lily, yes, that is correct. She uses mirror magic, and there's this entire thing about why you should not stand between two mirrors. And just that sequence when when Granny breaks the mirror, and it all just comes collapsing, and both sisters get stuck inside the mirror, and only one returns. And since we still have a lot of stories about witches in Lancre, we can guess which one comes back from the mirror. And of course it turns out, oh good lord, and then there's the whole thing with Mrs. Gokul and Mr. Saturday, who it's just, there are so many things that are packed into this book, and it's not thick. This is not the thickest book. There are so many things in this book. It's just all the things, all the stories, and then the story comes to an end. And the wonderful thing, and it's just before the breaking of the mirror, is there's a wonderful little paragraph about stories want to end, and when they end, they don't care. They don't care about people, they don't care about the characters, they don't care what happens to the people after the story ends. And then we get the breaking of the mirror and the proper ending of our story. And just, I love it. This book, I love it. So I hope, really, like, I've been yammering for about half an hour now. I don't have my notebook. I've probably said that a million times by now. But this book, it's such a fantastic, tightly woven story narrative of stories, travel, puns, characters, caricatures. Excuse the pronunciation, I suddenly could not pronounce the word. Is making fun of British tourists abroad, is making fun of us, basically. It's fairy tales, is the true horror of what happens when you have an animal and turn it into something that looks human. Oh, and when they turn creeper into human, they're like, probably a better idea, but Grebo is a cat and he's kind of human anyway, and he's probably the only creature who can handle this because he's a cat. Literally, Terry Pratchett comes out and says cats are the only creatures in the entire universe who would be like, you know what, they could handle being human. And basically, it's just... it's about fairy godmothers, it's about witches, it's about sisters, it's about being human, it's about being a woman, basically. Women getting along, women not getting along. If you want to try the Bechdel test, this book absolutely passes. Basically, the only time when they talk about men is when they talk about the duck, and that's because he creeps them out. I thought, or Baron Saturday, but he's like not that. Like, neither is a major character in this. Like, they have pivotal roles, they have their parts to play, but... So yeah, this is my chaotic retelling, or, you know, chattering about this book. I think it's the 12th Discworld novel. Doesn't really matter. It's a Discworld novel, and I love it, and I do really recommend it because it's fun. Which one is next? Next book I will be chatting about is Small Gods, which is all about religion. So I really hope you had fun watching this video. Not my best prepared, but at least I had a lot of giggles, because, hey. But yeah, I do have a playlist of all the books that I've covered so far in the Discworld canon. I am still on my mission to reread every single one of them and chatting to you guys about it. And yeah, I do have some other videos. Hopefully there's something on here that you would like to see and see what's same meaning. I will hopefully see you in another video of mine, and until then, take care. I'll see you later. Okay, bless.